You're here with Bull City Rising for interviews with the candidates for City Council. I'm Kevin Davis.
And I'm Lisa Sword.
And we are hosted here at Seeds, the Durham nonprofit. Their website's at seedsnc.org. And we really appreciate their supporting us and providing this space today. With us here this morning is Mike Shiflett. Mike is one of the many challengers for the City Council. Is one of the 3 seats coming open in the November general election, having made it through the primary earlier this month. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
As part of this interview series, Lisa and I are trying to bring questions that haven't always been addressed in the debates. So this is a chance to talk to each candidate individually with some really honest and direct questions about what's going on in Durham, what they're standing for, and what issues they see with our community. So let's get started. Mike, tell us a little bit about why you decided to run for City Council.
I moved to Durham in 1984. I've been here for 31 years. I've been active in my community, in my neighborhood, a number of nonprofits, volunteer organizations, some boards and commissions. And I hadn't thought about running for City Council. I ran in 1999, but I hadn't thought about running for City Council until I heard that Eugene Brown was deciding late in the game, May, June, decided not to run. And then shortly after that, Diane Katata. Actually got a phone call from Eugene and wanted to know what I was going to do. Met with him a few times, and when the filing period opened up, I decided to go ahead and give it a shot. Mostly because I feel like I have a community connection. I've worked with the neighborhoods, and felt like I could contribute.
Very good. One of the themes of this campaign, it's like we were talking about before the interview, is this sort of sense of change and discomfort in Durham. People may be feeling some of the ramifications of Durham's success over the last 10, 15 years. You've talked a lot about your civic record, and I think the position has a real strength for you, the ways you've been engaged. But how do you see that in a campaign where there seems to be so much energy for change? Do you think that that is a strength, or do you think people are pushing back against some of the success that we're seeing?
We are in a very critical period of time with social media, with the availability of instant video, opportunities to be able to have short clips of instances on the national level has raised a lot of awareness for things that need to change. And that happens here in Durham as it has in other cities. I believe, fortunately, in Durham, we've had a history of working with the police department. I think coming from Partners Against Crime, or Business Against Crime organizations, that there has been a communication. It hasn't been perfect, it hasn't. I think there have been some protests against the Durham Police Department and law enforcement here in Durham that have been sometimes with good resolution, sometimes awakens people's awareness, as it has for me, and sometimes it's been a negative impact with things that ended up not in the best interest of Durham image. But I think there are a lot of great things happening in Durham, for all the negative connotations, a lot of negative videos that you've seen. There are a lot of positive things that are happening in Durham that I'd like to focus on in my campaign.
Could you, just as a follow-up, could you tell me some of those positive things that you'd like to focus on?
We're sitting in one. I happen to attend a number of events, the beer and wine events, beer festivals, and not that I'm completely engaged with the alcoholic, but I think it's the opportunity to be able to engage the community that is so fresh and so new now in Durham. Places to go eat, and it's opening up all across Durham, where people have a chance to actually get a chance to meet and enjoy an evening together, to go to a venue, the Performing Arts Center, American Tobacco, the Bimbe Festival, the Durham Bulls at Lincoln Park. These are great things that have happened so far in the last 10, 15 years. And I believe that those are things that we can focus on. It shouldn't be the only focus. We need to pay attention to the negative things, the things we can improve upon. But I think just remembering there is a balance. And I think that's what I'm trying to bring to the community and to this campaign, is there is a lot of great things happening. And for that point, I think the Durham's motto has been, where great things are happening. And for me, they just don't spontaneously happen. We're sitting here at Seeds today. It takes a number of volunteers, some money, and an organization to make that happen. And for me, it's good people making great things happen in Durham. So that has been my motto, and I like to focus on that for the rest of the campaign.
You know, and I think you're right. A lot of what comes into making Durham successful are what people do. There's also what politicians do, what our elected officials do. Think back on the last 10 or 15 years of change in Durham. Tell us about a couple of city council decisions that you really supported and think were really critical. But also, what are some city council decisions or policies that you find yourself disagreeing with and that you would want to see changed on council?
I believe citizens or residents of Durham like to believe that the city council is wise with their spending, that they're doing good things with their tax dollars. I think when there is a mistake, I think people get very vocal. There was one that's a real small issue, but it got to be kind of big lately. It's with the yard waste container fee that showed up all of a sudden. People had no idea that it was coming up. I missed it until I got a letter in the mail saying that I was going to start charging for a waste container for yard waste. I think what I'd like to be able to see is find incentives for people to do the right thing rather than a penalty or paying for something that you think the city wants you to do. And there have been some missteps with the yard waste recycling that caught on fire 10, 15 years ago. I'm not too sure the city council had anything to do with that. I think it was solid waste, and it was an unfortunate incident. People weren't paying attention to what they should be doing, and it gave us a bad impression. I think for the most part, I think we've been pretty fortunate to have city council and the general population working together to try to make things happen, and it's been positive. So I'm trying to think of a very negative thing. Other than the awareness that's been brought up over the last couple of months, in the last 2 years, and not on the national level, I think we've done a pretty good job so far.
So one of the questions that's coming from a lot of candidates, as you can imagine, Mike, is about campaign fundraising. This is a very expensive campaign. A lot of money's been raised, more than in many recent campaigns. Mm-hmm. One of your supporters who threw a campaign fundraising event for you, Bob Shiflett, is someone who has contributed to a lot of the change in the DIY district downtown. Bob Shiflett has a lot of fans and friends in town. There's also those who are concerned that his work leads towards gentrification. Big theme in this year's election as well. Do you see anything problematic or do you believe you're aligned with the development community? How do your views on development line up with gentrification and the controversies of Durham?
I think that's a good question, especially for me. I've known Bob for the last 15 years. His wife, or my wife, and he had worked on Trinity Heights project that Duke is over by Duke East Campus, very successful, and it stimulated the neighborhood that had been blighted and neglected in Walltown to become a little bit more, property values started going up. And it's benefited some of the people that decided to stay there. Gentrification has come up, and I think that really does affect renters more than it does property owners. You end up paying a little bit more property taxes, but your net worth seems to increase. So I think that's a good benefit of gentrification is for the property owners. They see an increase in their net worth. And I think that's important for everyone in Durham. Bob Chapman worked a lot to be able to get the Deer Street Garden going, Durham Central Park School, Trotter Building, and there is development just to the east of that, the North Street project, which would have never taken off had that initial investment by somebody who's a resident of Durham, been a developer, a local developer, hadn't taken the time and his own money to invest in a blighted area. And so there are some benefits that have filtered past just what he has done into the neighborhoods. And I think that will continue. I think you've seen the co-housing development happen because of maybe something that Bob had done, from not just Bob, but other developers too. We see the East-West Partners building the projects. Now, I'm very much aware that a lot of these projects are market rate. We need to address that as a city council, and I hope that's a question we have later on.
It's actually the next question.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes. Oh yeah, here it is. Affordable housing. So how do you address affordable housing? I know there's city land, for example, that could be sold. Now we have a Jackson Street parcel that may or may not go to, affordable housing. Looks like there could be some movement on that. So how do you, as council, given the handcuffs that the legislature has put on you, incentivize these kinds of developments, because as we know, density bonuses don't usually work in cities our size. Possibly eliminating some parking requirements, but what's the policy more than the goal?
I like it when somebody asks me a question and personally gives me some of the answers. So I'm trying to get back in. So yeah, in providing incentives for developers, rather than saying an ordinance that you have to do a certain thing, I like the idea of being able to provide opportunities for people to do the right thing, because it not only is the right thing, but because they might make a little bit more money on it. There might be a profit incentive for them to do affordable housing, for them to be able to provide amenities like mixed use, to be able to have a restaurant with residentials on top of it. And affordable housing is a big issue right now. And for me, it's the history that I have in Durham. Back in the late mid-90s, Larissa Seibel started a campaign for decent housing. I was one of the first community people to help join her with that.
How did that inform housing solutions, though? It's one thing to penalize somebody, it's one thing, it's kind of like you're fixing that landlord possibly, but are you fixing the system?
Great system. You got to be understand how the system works to be able to improve it. One of the benefits of being on the Campaign for Decent Housing and substandard housing committees is you get to understand what the difference between housing and community development, what the roles of neighborhood improvement services are, and where the Housing Appeals Board, as a citizens review, quasi-judicial review board, fits into that scheme. And one of the benefits that I think that we worked on over the 8 years that I was on the board was to stop thinking about demolishing substandard housing and working for compliance. To be able to have the housing stock that is pretty unique here in Durham, to be able to renovate it, fix it back up, and require landlords and property owners to fix the properties back up. There's a lot of affordable housing in Durham. It's just not as decent as it needs to be. And one of the roles of city council, one of the state statutory roles of city council, is to enforce the building code and the minimum housing code. A lot of people don't know that, but if you have worked your way through 10, 15 years or 20 years of working in housing, you understand it. I think I like to be able to use that experience and the successes we've had with the Campaign for Decent Housing, the success with the Housing Appeals Board, the success with working within the process, and apply that to my role as a city councilman.
So we need affordable housing, but we also need jobs for everyone. One of the controversies that's coming up in this campaign is how many jobs that are technical, IT jobs, biotechnology jobs, knowledge worker jobs that come to Durham. And sometimes there's this perception or reality that we aren't seeing middle class and working class jobs come in. Is that, to your way of thinking, a problem because of the incentives that we're doing or what we're actively trying to recruit to town? Or is this more of a macroeconomic issue of the nature of America's economy today?
It might be even more deeper than that. I think it has to do with our education system today. We might be a generation behind in educating our kids to having a career, an employable, job-ready position after you get out of high school. Back in the 50s and 60s, we had the opportunity to learn a vocational skill. Guys took metal shop, wood shop. We also had the opportunity to take home economics. We had business classes that we could take. So when we finished high school, we had employable skills. For those of us that didn't have employable skills and we lived in a factory town, like I grew up in Akron, Ohio, where there was a lot of tire jobs, a lot of my classmates went into the tire building industry or simple machinery that kind of supported them. Those positions, those jobs, the manufacturing, mega employers are going away. And we need to realize that as a society, we need to realize that as an educational system, that we need to start focusing our children on employable skills after high school. I have 4 children. 4 of those, 2 of them graduated college, and I've got 2 in college right now. After the 2 that graduated, they were still having a hard time trying to find a job. And I'm not blaming that on the educational system, it's the way it is. I think we are moving that way, or moving to better in Durham now because we have magnet schools. A good example is the City of Medicine Academy, where after graduation from high school, they can enter and employable jobs, good paying jobs, right after graduation in phlebotomy and radiology and laboratory work and nursing. Those are great quality jobs that they get the basic skills in high school that then they can apply and move on in career later on. Technical schools, Durham Tech is a great example of being able to provide skills building for people that might not have gotten it in high school or in grade school.
And we have the Holton Center, which is being underutilized. Where do you think public policymakers have gone wrong in not getting more use out of
Is
this?
a great advocate for making sure that we do start using that a little bit better. We had the same question when we opened up the senior center downtown in Bixby. It was underutilized because it was brand new. We worked as a board to try and get more programs in there, to get more people to visit that site. Howard Clement, I want to pat him on the back for getting the bus stop placed right outside the senior center so people could get there. Yes, it is underutilized. I think Parks and Recreation, PAC 1, need to start working a little bit closer together to try and make those programs available for the local residents. It's just within a few blocks of this census block 10.01 that the mayor's poverty reduction initiatives have started. We hold our meetings there. I think that's a great start. I think we need to continue that, offer more programs.
Great.
I'll go back to the affordable housing question. You mentioned Jackson Street. I didn't answer that question. As a founding member of the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit, that issue came up to us from Self-Help Credit Union. That is a perfect example of what we can do to make housing for all incomes. I have to agree with the mayor. We don't want to silo affordable housing. I don't want to silo people of low income. I think we need to have mixed income housing. I think one of the connotations that people have with affordable housing is a negative connotation. I think if we can show, if we can have an example of how to do it right. And what a perfect place to put it. Downtown by the transportation hub, next to Amtrak, where we will eventually have either a light rail or bus rapid transit, but regional rail, a commuter rail that will take people from Burlington to Hillsborough to Durham to Raleigh to Archie Peak. So I think that is where we need to have not just market rate, which is being built in Charlotte and a lot around Durham. We need to have affordable housing, mixed income housing,
Right.
so people can work and have access to jobs. And I think even having access to jobs in the local area, not have to get on mass transit to get to a job.
So Mike, in a lot of your answers, you're talking about experience and engagement and work you've done. There's another message that we're hearing from some candidates and some citizens that generationally, we have city council and mayor who are largely in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. We don't have any representation of individuals in their 20s and 30s. Even if you're a very experienced candidate, do you believe that that need for a generational transition needs to be supported on council as well?
So I moved to Durham back in the 80s, and there are a number of people over the years that have been on city council, and I think there's an opportunity for Durham to have a youthful person come to Durham. I think there needs to be a balance between the passion and the knowledge and experience and maturity. So I agree, there needs to be that voice, whatever that voice is. But you can't just have always one voice. The city council should be a mixture of Durham.
Do you think our city council's been a mixture of Durham?
The current city council?
The council that I remember in a decade living here.
Yeah, it has been a council, and as in a lot of councils throughout the United States, a lot of gray hairs. And there's an advantage to have somebody with maturity and older experience. You get to know the different, how the system works, like you mentioned. For somebody who comes in that's only lived here for maybe a year, 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years, they barely know the neighborhoods. They barely know how to get from one side of town to the other. And the benefit of having somebody like myself, who's been here these number of years, and I've been in people's houses that is much different than mine. You have that exposure, you have that knowledge, you have that trust that you wouldn't get by just said, there are the been years and the just been years. And I still feel as a 30-year resident of Durham, I'm pretty much still a just been here. And for people that have been here for 1 or 2 years, they need to build that experience. They need to build knowledge of where a neighborhood is, where their particular interests are, where their problems are, and where the successes are. Let's focus on the really great things that are happening here.
Well, one of the things, I was at the Compact Neighborhood Land Use meeting last night over at Gibbons Middle School, and seems like there is definitely a suburban-urban divide in Durham in terms of sensibilities and concerns. So, if you think about the shopping center and mixed-use development that's planned for North Durham, the rail operations maintenance facility that either Cornwallis or Farrington, depending on where it lands, and the light rail out by Downing Creek. So it's a very different Durham out there. So how do you address these kinds of development and transit pressures in ways that satisfy both communities?
One thing we haven't touched on yet is the amount of people that are moving to Durham. We've been found. Magazine articles, Forbes magazine, USA Today, all recognizing Durham and the Triangle as a mecca for entrepreneurship, for great jobs, of people, all kinds of backgrounds. We're going to face a huge growth in population, and having options for those people to move here, whether they want to live in a planned community or an urban downtown setting or suburb like myself, that's going to put a lot of pressure on us. The light rail project, like you mentioned, is maybe trying to provide some of that focus where people can live that we don't really have right now, that they live in a very urban, very dense, and hopefully well-designed area. We've talked a little bit about, or you mentioned the light rail project. I think with the state changing their formula for funding, it might give us an opportunity to take a small breather on what we really want as a city and where that route would go.
So political action committees in Durham, the PACs, are always a source of some controversy and some questions. The Durham News had an article this week about candidates giving some of their money they received as donations or as fundraising to PACs. And several candidates have done that. Your $2,500 donation to the Durham Committee was highlighted. In that specific case, was there any kind of, if I'm endorsed, I will provide this money? And more generally, what is your feeling now of being a candidate about the role that PACs are playing and the role that money is playing in elections?
My understanding, having been here for the last number of years, is Durham is almost unique in having political action committees running local elections. PACs have been pretty well known over the last in federal elections, national elections, and the Republican and Democratic divide or separation in parties isn't as evident here in the local elections. I kind of like that because I believe that they gather opinion of people of similar thought processes to be able to vet the candidates. I was disappointed. One of the first groups that came up was the People's Alliance. I was disappointed that I wasn't selected as an endorsed candidate. I think a lot of things that I've done over the years have been issues that they've worked on: schools, environment, transit, housing. I think all those are things that I've spent a lot of time working on, trying to get to know the community, including community engagement in general. So that was a disappointment. I'm not discouraged. So then when the Friends of Durham gave me their endorsement, which is the complete opposite of what happened in 1999, I was so surprised and humbled. I was even more humbled when I got the Committee on Affairs of Black People. For them to pass up two other candidates, which would have been traditional endorsees, to see some of the history that I've done, my working with the community, and having gotten their endorsement meant a lot to me. I had said that I had started the campaign late. I think one of the advantages of the People's Alliance endorsees were that they had been working with the People's Alliance for months before the filing period. I waited till the very end to be able to go ahead and make the announcement of my campaign. I completely understand that. Because I'm a grassroots person, I don't have a lot of income, a lot of donations coming from outside the state or outside the city. The biggest donation I've gotten so far, I think, has been $500. I've contributed $6,000 of my own money to this campaign. I'm proud of that. I have to be really careful on how I spend that money. When I got the endorsement from the committee, I know that their background is in poll workers and having a well-oiled, organized campaign support team, and I wanted to show them that appreciation and how difficult it is for them to see that somebody that can see both sides of the issue, you kind of lose the opportunity to be able to be a centrist when you have your eyes set on both sides. And I think I did the right thing. It's my intention to continue to support the People's Alliance. Even though I wasn't a candidate they endorsed, I will continue to do the work that they believe in, along with Durham Can. But I'm very pleased to be one of the candidates that has such a wide variety of endorsements. As a matter of fact, I got another endorsement. Ricky Hart and I both got endorsements of the Friends and the committee. We also got endorsements from the Sheriff and Police Alliance. And last night we just got the endorsement of the Republican Party. But look at me. Do I look like I should have that number of endorsements? If it's not what a person says or does in interviews like this, in candidate forums, or anything else that a person says when they're in front of a camera, it's what they've done in the past. It's the history that they've had. Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they contributing? Are they doing something that you can count on when they become an elected official? That you can bet on they're going to listen to you, they're going to be able to understand what's happening, and be able to help you solve your problem. So I think that's my campaign.
Just to follow up on that, and this is more of a perception issue. So the Durham Committee came out with its endorsements, I believe, on Saturday, August 22nd.
Okay.
I believe the contribution that you made to their general voter education fund, according to the campaign finance report, said it was $818.
No, it was at least a week after.
Okay, I just wanted to
And
check.
I don't know where that is coming from. I got a number of reporters that were looking into that. I don't know where that's coming from. I can show you the check that was written. I'd be more than glad to prove that. Whoever has a doubt about when that contribution was made,
Okay.
it was made at least a week after the endorsement.
Okay, that was when.
And they did not ask me for a huge donation. They just wanted to know if I was going to be able to have, how was my campaign funded? And I came right out and said, I'm funding my campaign right now.
Great.
All right.
So, Mike, we've asked you a lot of questions. Are there any topics we haven't touched on or things you'd like to share with viewers of the video?
I expected a question about youth. Being old gray hair, what can I do? What can I have to contribute to youth? And over the last 16 years, I think I've worked really hard with a group called Kids Voting. We mentioned a number of the candidate forums that are coming up. We have another one tomorrow night. That's on Thursday. And Kids Voting provides an opportunity for children, elementary school, junior high, or middle school, to learn what it's like to be an involved citizen, to train them to understand what the issues are. They ask the questions. They ask them, not an adult. They ask the questions. They have a candidate forum that Kids Voting publishes. It's a great opportunity for adults to read that. I'm very pleased to say that back in the late 90s, I got involved with Kids Voting, have been involved with it when the chamber had it, and have been involved with it for the last 10 years since the County Extension Service has hosted Kids Voting at their Foster Street building. I had served as chair until this summer when I filed for campaign. It might be a conflict of interest, and I agree it is, for me to be running and be chair of that organization. And I got to tell you, when you are standing at a ballot box initiate children, your children, to learn how to vote like an adult does, and if their voice counts. That's what we're missing in today's society, to actually listen to our children, to give them the power, for them to be able to grow up and say, you know, my voice is going to matter. And when they're 18, they have the opportunity to be able to do that as an adult. And having the practice and the experience of having investigated what it's like the issues, the candidates that they're running.
Great.
So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to have kids voting show up on my interview. So thank you very much.
Great.
All right, well, Mike, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Early voting starts tomorrow.
It does. Good
So,
timing.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks for coming down.
Okay. I'm gonna give Jim.
Okay, sounds good. Turn the power off.